If you're a small business owner and you feel like you don't fit in the world like normal people do, you're not alone. That is so common. I've talked to literally hundreds of business owners and they all are like, man, yeah, the normal life that most people live, that's not for me. I couldn't do it. It's not who I am. It's not how I operate. It's not how I think. Nothing about it for me is that way. And I found a book that absolutely connected with that mindset. And I was super excited to go through the book and to listen to it. And as I'm listening to it, I'm hearing statements that all of these business owners have told me, and it's all in this book. And so, if you've never heard of the book called Living with ADHD by Thom Hartmann, it is absolutely incredible. It describes so many of the things that business owners oftentimes will struggle with. I've seen studies that have said that as high as like 29% of small business owners and entrepreneurs have either ADD or ADHD. That's an insane number. Think about that. You walk into a room, one, two, three, you have it. One, two, three, you have it. One, two, three, you have it. That doesn't exist anywhere else in this world. We as small business owners literally get pushed out of the norm and get pulled into this alternative. And this is the small business ownership, the entrepreneurship, that living life in a totally different way. But so many of these small business owners struggle with the same sort of things. We'll have all of these ideas and we're like, idea over here. And just ideas are blasting everywhere. And we're like, I could do a million different things. And then we go to implement. And you're like, oh no, I I could do this one. Or you could do this one. Or what about this one? And you finally pick one. You're like, this is the one. I'm going to do this. And when you go to do it, what happens is then the body will resist and then it doesn't get done and you procrastinate. But then when you come up to the deadline, you're like, okay, now it's got to happen. You stay up till 2 a.m, you make it all happen, you get it all done. And then when you get it all done, you're like, oh, phew, it's off my plate. Well, all of that is explained in this book, and he gives strategies to be able to overcome that so that as people with ADD or ADHD, whatever it is you have the ability to say, I recognize these characteristics, and some of these often appear in my life as negative. Over here's a list of ones that appear in my life as positives. Let's move some of the negatives over to the positive side. And there's strategies and techniques and tricks and tips on how you can do that. So again, Living with ADHD, Thom Hartmann, incredible book. He recently updated it, or I think it was in 2020 was the new release. And he goes in and describes so many characteristics, so many pieces that small business owners really need. Here's one example. He said in the original book that he wrote in 1997, there was no understanding of what ADD is. There were ideas, oh, it's a nutritional deficiency, or it's maybe the environment you grew up in, or maybe you were exposed to toxins, or maybe a part of your brain just doesn't work. And there's all these crazy different ideas all over the charts as to what ADD could be. And they said, fast forward now in 2020, when the book was re-released, he said there's one thing that people with ADD, ADHD have in common. And he said normal people, their requirement for dopamine, now this is Jason's words, not his, but their requirement for dopamine to be, we'll just say normal happy, is right here. People with ADHD, ADD, theirs might be here, it might be here, 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 here. It's higher. In other words, it takes more dopamine, it takes more stimulant, it takes more excitement, it takes more crazy in order to get to that same level of happy that what we call normal people have. So if you know, okay, I've got to do things bigger, louder, faster, crazier, more exciting, that may be just feeding the need for a little bit more dopamine so that your receptors bring you up to that same normal level of happy. Now, if that describes you, what does that also say about you as a business owner? Well, now you're going to recognize why you're going out and taking these risks. Most people aren't going to take those risks. You're willing to go out there. You're like, yeah, I can do that. And you recognize the risk, but it's okay. Part of that might be the dopamine cycle. Right? Your body's gotta have more dopamine, gotta have more dopamine. So you're willing to take higher risks than normal people because it gives you a higher reward, which that higher reward is necessary to bring you up to that baseline happy. That's just one example. But then there's these ideas of, like I was talking about earlier, where you get to that point where you're making that decision and you're pushed to do some work and you don't do it until you're running up against that deadline. And then you do the superhuman, I can do it, and you go through and get it all done. But then you're like, oh, exhausted. Well, that could also tie back to that whole thing, because people with ADD, ADHD, they do really well with external pressure. When you've got the pressure coming down on you, all of a sudden you're feeling, oh no, I'm threatened by this. And it gives you that rise. It gives you that energy, that excitement. And so now you're like, okay, I've got to perform, because if I don't perform, the stakes are now higher. And if the stakes are higher, the dopamine's higher. And so now you've got that risk reward again, and you're going through that same cycle. Well, if you can unpack that and give yourself instead a little bit of maybe some fire, some small fires that are going to give you a dopamine hit. You're like, okay, I've got 15 minutes. I got to get this project done. And if I don't, I've got to call up my friend and tell him I didn't get it done. And now you've given yourself a small little deadline before the deadline. And you can still use that knowledge that you need to get the dopamine hit in order to get work done. And you can give yourself the deadline that's the fake deadline, but put some pressure around it so that you still have that heightened sense that it has to get done. And that can be a way that you can circumvent and move that negative over to the positive side. The book's chock full of ideas. I think that if you're in business, if you have ADD, you have ADHD, you know somebody who has that, or you work with people who have that on a regular basis, any of these things would be a great reason to go pick up that book. Or if you're a small business owner and maybe you have ADD, ADHD, you could listen to it on 2x speed so that it's going fast enough. Your brain's actually going to comprehend what it's saying, because it keeps you enthralled when it's going extra fast. So if that's what you got to do, go do it. Listen to that book, read that book, whatever it takes, because what it's going to do is it's going to open up this package of opportunities for you, and you can start pulling out and using all these tools that are in this gift of a book that describes the life of so many small business owners today.